Entitled Women of Today Search for Attention and Validation often find themselves on Highway 304, the cheater's highway. Exit 3, wife finds that cheating with her boss isn't a great work choice. I had my doubts about my wife's fidelity for almost 6 months now. I wasn't sure until 3 weeks ago when I discovered a second phone that was identical to one that I bought her. We were watching some television when she got a call from a worker. She is an office manager for a manufacturing company, so this wasn't unusual if someone was calling in for work the next day. She excused herself and went into our home office and closed the door. I heard a cell phone ringing somewhere in the house. I checked mine, and it wasn't receiving a call. I followed the sound into the kitchen where my wife's work bag sat on the kitchen table. The ring was coming from the bag. I dug around inside and found my wife's real phone ringing with a call from one of our daughters that were away at college. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't want to tip my hand. There is only one reason for her to have two identical phones. I called my assistant, or my buddy that's a lawyer. I had to plan, and he was the guy to help me do it. We married young, and we weren't each other's first. Even with raising our two daughters, we had sex 3 to 4 times each week. As we're both approaching 50, me next year and her the year after, we had sex at least twice each week, that is until the last 5 months when it became once a week on Saturday. On the day that I found the second phone, it had been over a week since we had sex, and now that I am sure that she is cheating, I don't plan to have sex with her until I have a clear idea of if I have an STD. I don't have any outward signs, but sometimes you don't. Yesterday, I went to be tested. I confided in my assistant about my fears and concerns, and he was sure that he could help me. It would take a few weeks, but we could make it happen. A few weeks later, my assistant and I formulated a plan. The plan was executed with interesting results. I wanted to confront my wife's lover and her bosses for allowing something like this to happen to my marriage. I wore my Sunday best suit for my meeting, and my assistant dressed sharply as well. He approached the secretary, assistant of my wife's immediate supervisor. She confirmed our appointment and announced us to her boss. After a minute, she opened his office door for us to enter. My assistant activated his various recording devices so we would have a record of the answers that I am looking for. Upon entering the office, my assistant saw on the sofa at the rear of the office while I took a seat at one of the 2 chairs placed in front of the desk. He stood and reached across the desk to shake my hand. I leaned forward and took his right hand and we shook. "Mr. Forrest, you can call me Jim, and what can Collins Manufacturing do for your company?" I avoided his question with mine. "You seem quite young to be a VP of sales, Jim. How did you achieve this level of greatness?" He smiled as I played his ego. "Well, it's maybe hard work, but having an uncle that's the founder doesn't hurt." He laughed like he'd given away a secret. He leaned backward into his chair. "Really, what can I do for you? I can offer some very interesting payment options." He winked. I paused, the look him in his eyes. "Well, you can tell me why you're banging my wife." The look of shock showed on his face. It was a panicked look. It seemed that his mind was rushing over various men's wives that he may have had sex with. I threw him a bone. "You look like you can't figure out which man I am. She has 2 daughters in college, and she is the office manager for this firm." His face drew down, and if he was waiting for me to punch him, but I sat quietly watching him. "Again, why are you effing my wife?" He smirked. "It's nothing against you. I like being single, I want no attachments, so I do married women. I don't want a girlfriend, and I do get off knowing that I took another man's wife away from him. The women think that they have been missing something and crave excitement. Being honest, this is new ground for me. You're the first husband to confront me," the confession continued. "At first, years ago, I tried to satisfy these women better than their husband, but over time I learned that I didn't need to, so I don't really try to satisfy anyone but myself. I don't have to be bigger than the husbands, I just have to be younger and richer." We looked at each other, as he asked, "How did you figure it out?" I looked unblinking into his eyes. "We have been married almost 25 years, that's the sad part, but over time people learn about each, have routines. Over the last 6 months, I have watched my wife being more secretive, more withdrawn at times. There were strange credit card receipts. 4 months ago, I noticed her dressing differently, being more attractive for work. Never dressing up for me, but for someone." I pointed to him with my right hand, as if he digesting what I had said. "If you must know, she wasn't easily seduced. She came to work in her frumpy sweaters and cardigans, always professional, but one morning, I walked past the break room and I overheard a conversation between your wife and another worker. She felt old, her daughters abandoned her for college, her husband worked long hours, and she felt her life was empty, void of any adventure. By this point, I had bettered most of the office married ladies, so I said to myself, let's give her an adventure. I started asking her questions about office materials and vendor relationships. We started having lunch together a few times a week. I found myself attracted to her more than I thought I would. I talked her into dressing better for work. As you know, she has a wonderful body that she kept hidden under those sweaters. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. I don't want your wife, I'm just using her. A lot. Once, I banged her the first time. It was like she couldn't get enough. She wants to hook up every day. If she effed you that much, you'd be dead. I cleared my throat. But, the second cell phone was a novel idea. It was the clincher. I smiled a little grin. You may not know it, but she's in a romantic relationship with you. Doesn't matter what you want. I know that from your communications over the second phone. He looked uncomfortable. What communications on the second phone? I felt sinister. You see, I replaced the second phone with a third cell phone. It was easy as your number was the only number in memory. My assistant uploaded the contents of the second phone to a computer to analyze. He looked in thought as if he may had sent any messages or voicemails that might endanger him. Would you care to summon my wife to this meeting? After he put down his desk phone receiver, we didn't speak. We sat quietly waiting for her to join us. I heard my wife gasp after she entered his office, and realized that I was sitting in the client chair. What are you doing here? She asked. Her lover answered for me. He knows. That is why he is here. I stood and removed my dress coat and laid it on the empty chair next to me. How long have you been effing other men? Are my daughters really mine? She looked at me with tears. Of course the girls are yours. How can you say that? Well, we have established that you have relations with men other than me, so why should I believe that the girls are mine? You might have been effing other men our entire marriage. I exclaimed. She realized that I was looking at the pushed-up cleavage that protruded at her open blouse neckline, and she tried to adjust it. I see that you like to look trashy here at work. She pulled the buttons together and covered her cleavage better. I've never cheated on you before, I grimaced as I spoke. This man that destroyed our family, and made you the company 304. I've read your texts and emails. I know that you're in a relationship with him. Hell, when I try for intimacy every few days, you call me names, and make me leave you alone while he tells me that you have it with him every day. The panic on her face went to anger. That's a lie. Yeah, the first couple of weeks, we did it every day, but after that it's been a couple times a week. Maybe 3 times some weeks. I growled back. That doesn't make it better for me, does it? I do without while he getting what should be mine. The thing that's supposed to be for us in this marriage. Tell me, my darling, is it better? No, maybe, it's different, was her questionable reply. How so? I asked. She looked down at the floor. It's just different, exciting, and I can explore things that I would be ashamed to do with you. After a little pause. For me it's more pleasurable. Jim's thinner so I don't tear when we do it. Without the pain, no the discomfort, I can relax and enjoy it better. I'm sorry, you're sorry. So you think that it's okay to do other men if their junk is a better fit? That's what the lube is for, but no, you don't want to use it for some stupid reason when you know in a few more years, menopause will dry out your insides. Then, lube will be the only way you can have painless relations. I rolled up my sleeves to my elbow. Here's the deal of the hour. You will do Jim, over there, in front of me, or I will beat the ever-loving crap out of him. Do you understand? Jim broke his silence. Now what a second, I'm not going to let you watch me with your wife, and I won't fight you over her. I pushed the chair out of my way, to clear the room. So she's good enough to bang, but you don't care about her enough to fight for her? I glanced at my wife. Great choice for a lover. Jim tried to rush past me out the door. He opened the door before I caught him, and screamed to his assistant, "Help!" I dragged him on his stomach back into the room. My assistant closed the door. The knee dropped into his gut, expelling the air from his lungs. I hit his face over and over. When I'm done, he would no longer be the pretty boy of Collins Manufacturing. Out of meanness, I stomped his crotch, and broke the fingers on his right hand. Jim, there's always a price to pay for seducing married women. As he tried to look at me with eyes swelling shut, my wife had backed herself into the corner. She was afraid that she was next. The office door swung open with the big boss, Mr. Collins, with several men from the manufacturing floor. Once he looked at the room, Collins looked at me. Forrest, what the hell is going on? Please take time to like this and subscribe to our channel. I motioned to my assistant, and he opened his messenger bag, and removed several file folders. Well, Mr. Collins, it seems that your nephew has been intimate with the married women that work here, and he made the mistake of effing mine for the last 4 or 5 months. My assistant laid a folder against Jim's chest. Mr. Jim Smith, you are served. He walked over to my wife, and handed her a folder also, you are served. Then, he came over to Collins, and repeated it again. You are served. What is this crap, Forrest? Exclaimed Jim Smith. I patted Collins on the right shoulder. He's being sued for destroying my marriage. My crying wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, for divorce, and lastly, I am suing you for allowing it to happen. How was I to know? Exclaimed Collins. Everyone else around here did. I motioned to my assistant. He handed a large file folder. This will help. Collins took the folder and stared at me. Once I realized that she was doing him, my assistant went to work checking everything out. Your wonderful nephew wasn't just effing up my life, he was effing up yours, too. He's been lowball selling prices to your customers for a cash kickback on the side. When he got news that bookkeeping may have found out about his side business, he started seducing my wife, so she could make sure that no one else would find out. Cover his ass. He didn't desire my wife, he didn't want her love, he wanted someone that he could use or blackmail if he needs to cover his ass. My assistant spoke. I'm Forrest's attorney, and I would be happy to represent you with this case. I can confirm over $200,000 so far, this year in kickbacks, and over $500,000 from when he started his scheme last year. I will leave you, gentlemen, to discuss this. I pulled the door closed as I left. I heard the door slam behind me as my wife screamed for me to stop. Forrest, don't leave, let me explain, I heard as I continued to walk toward the lobby to exit. I didn't pick the pace as I walked, and I could hear the clicks of her heels on the tile floor. It sounds like she almost running to catch me. I reached the curb leading to the parking lot when she grasped my left arm. I stopped and turned to face her. Tearing ran down her cheeks. Please let me explain. I waved my right hand in front of her face. There's nothing for you to explain. You've been cheating, and I'm through with you. You're probably going to prison for your part in your boyfriend's scheme anyway. Oh, crap. She whispered. It was obvious that prison hadn't crossed her mind. The consequences of her actions were yet to be discovered. She reached out and grasped both of my hands. Please let me try to explain. It didn't have anything to do with you. You're the best husband that any woman could have, apparently not? I retorted. She paused for a few seconds. I'm sorry, but it was about me. I was so selfish, so very selfish. The chatter of her voice continued with the Cheater's Handbook lies of I love only you. It didn't mean anything, it was only sex. I was feeling old, he was a young man interested in me, and other phrases. As she continued, my mind drifted. How do we get here? My wife isn't an unattractive woman, but she's not a beauty either. She's rather plain looking with mousy brown hair and eyes. She says she is 5'3", but she's not. Probably 2 inches shorter than that. She is physically what other women call pear-shaped, as she has a nice bust line, tiny waist and a huge butt. Up until I found out about her activities, I felt she was perfect for me. It's not that she's flirty or exciting because she isn't. Even in the bedroom. She's not outgoing. Our love life has always been sort of vanilla, and that's fine with me. And I thought it was fine with her as well. Over the years I wanted to spice up our intimacy, but she always shot it down, telling me it was too deprived or too nasty for us. Yet, the texts indicated that she was interested in those things with her boss. Like so many women that I hear about, she didn't realize that once she started her tryst, she began distancing herself from me. Less intimacy, less communication, telling lies and half-truths, and most definitely less love. She forgot that I have known her for nearly 25 years, and I know her better than she thinks I do. He did not care about her, he was only using her, but knowing my wife, she wouldn't have done it without having feelings for him. Since she had feelings for him, she did whatever he wanted, including hiding his embezzlement from his uncle's company. Of course, he threw her under the bus. An older woman that threw herself at him, and seduced him, and that she gave him the idea to embezzle from the company. He even lied to the authorities that they had been having relations for several years, beginning shortly after he came to work for the company. At least, I think that's a lie. My divorce should be final shortly before she finishes her jail term. You'd think it would be easier to divorce a cheating spouse that's in prison. She got 1 year for embezzlement since she was not on the bank accounts that held the stolen funds, while her lover got 5 years. I'm not sure why he got greedy, when he would probably inherit the business at some time in the future. I'm sure that our kids will try to get me to reconcile once their mother is paroled, but I try to make him understand that I will never reconcile with her. That trust is gone, and never to return. Probably with any other woman, not just their mother. I have so much more money since her incarceration, that I am focusing on early retirement in 5 years or so. I would like to start traveling America in an RV. I've always wanted to do that. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe.